Rick feels like he's wasted his early life working as a receptionist at the guild. Everyone knows that to become a respected adventurer, you need to start young. Still, at 30 years old, he decided to take his chances. In the deep mountains of the Demon Continent, Rick undergoes excruciating training from his monster mentors. For 2 years, every day was a life or death situation for him. In the kingdom, people become adventurers at a young age to train their magical powers, which barely develop if not trained early. However, Rick refuses to give up on his dream and registers for the upcoming adventurer's exam. Alyssa immediately recognizes her former senpai, still puzzled by his decision to resign and become an adventurer. Their catch-up is abruptly interrupted by a drunk adventurer, who has his eyes on Alyssa and refuses to take no for an answer. Stepping in, Rick gives the adventurer a light pat, causing him to collapse unconscious. He quickly attributes it to the man being overly drunk. With the problem resolved, Alyssa hands Rick his E-rank exam ticket. His entry number, 4242, marks the beginning of what seems like an unlucky streak for him. Stepping outside, Rick is greeted by one of his mentors and his personal assistant, Rionette. Meanwhile, inside, the crowd is shocked by the palm marks on the steel armor of the adventurer. It turns out he's a former I-rank adventurer wanted on assault charges. Alyssa quickly deduces that it was Rick's doing. Starting with the physical examination, the examiner is already taken aback to see a 32-year-old taking the exam. Moving on to the mana capacity test, where the brightness of the crystal indicates the tier D+, D-, C+. People are amazed by the results, but when it's Rick's turn, the crystal barely lights up. F with a minus. It's a genuine disgrace for someone of his age to have such low mana. However, as Rick walks away, the crystal suddenly bursts. The next test assesses their offensive power. The examiner assures them that the slime bag can withstand high impact and instructs them to use their strongest attack. Rick recalls his rigorous training under mentor, a Shork, who mandated 50,000 punches daily on a golden slime bag. Golden slime, reputed as tough as Dragon Fang, was a benchmark for Rick. A Shork expected Rick to be able to destroy it with his bare fists. It was tough. The standout examinee is the second son of the Diamuit family, hailed as a prodigy with C-rank powers at just 11 years old. He confidently begins casting his flashy magic, Flame of Hell, renowned for turning everything to ash, a spell of the third nature. Spectators are surprised by the spectacle, though its impact is modest. Despite this, he beams with pride, seen by many as a true genius. In Rick's recollection with his mentor Drakwall, the same magic appeared vastly different, capable of leveling cities. Yet, observing the young prodigy's scaled-down display, Rick speculates that he deliberately condensed his magic to suit the indoor setting, impressing everyone with his control and precision. After several more examinees, it's finally Rick's turn. Once again, reminded of his age and his disappointing mana measurement, the examiner advises Rick to consider giving up. Feeling the pressure, Rick reflects on his past resilience during training. He refused to give up then, and he won't give up now. With determination hardening his resolve, Rick clenches his fist, an aura beginning to emanate from him. In a surprising turn, he destroys the slime bag and even damages the wall. It's something truly unexpected. Rick's thoughts, it must have been a fluke. The Diamuit kid is visibly annoyed that Rick has stolen his spotlight, but he remains confident in the next test, defensive magic, his specialty. However, when Rick effortlessly blocks fourth nature composite magic, the Diamuit kid's hopes of impressing further diminish. The examiner, now intrigued by Rick's abilities, decides to push him further by testing his limits with 5th tier magic. Despite only being proficient in 1st tier defensive magic, Rick remains confident. The examiner begins a long incantation for a spell called Shock Cyclone, never before used in a test of this nature. The commotion catches the attention of first-rank knight, Sylvester, who arrives at the exam field. He learns about the extraordinary F-rank candidate capable of blocking 5th tier magic. Initially skeptical, Sylvester is astonished that it's not a joke. Adding to the surprise is Rick's age and his background as a former receptionist. Next up is the writing exam, a segment in which Rick feels confident due to his prior experience at the guild. Rick shares his results of the test with Rionette as he feels proud to be good at something. Still, he wonders if he will pass the first round, seeing as his mana was ranked F-, but Rionette believes that it should be fine. Suddenly, the Diamuit kid appears, calling Rick a lowly peasant. Rick struggles to recall his name, irritating the young Freed. Unaware of social cues, Rick inadvertently insults the boy further by assuming he is lost and offering to help find his parents. Freed had been eager to showcase his brilliance at the exam, but because of Rick, he tears up while expressing his disappointment. Suddenly, Freed's sister, Angelica, steps in, furious that Rick made her brother cry. Freed insists that Rick, whom he believes to be in his 40s, is bullying him. Rick, sensitive about his age, corrects him. Angelica continues to provoke Rick, escalating the situation. Finally, she challenges Rick to a duel. Reluctant to let things escalate but also not wanting for the glove to get dirty, Rick picks up the glove. Rionette steps in to clarify that by picking up the glove, Rick has inadvertently accepted the challenge. In the arena, Angelica declares herself as a second-class knight of the Royal Knights. In Philheim Kingdom, duel winners have the right to set the terms of victory. Confident in her abilities, Angelica sets a harsh condition. The loser will become the winner's lifelong servant. Rionette explains that the second-class knight is a round B rank level adventurer and asks for Rick to hold back. However, Rick believes in his identity as an F rank adventurer. There is no way he can win. His only goal is to survive the duel. To calm him down, Rionette reminds him of his training for the past 2 years. It's been a gruesome hell. His stomach turns from the memories, making Rick puke. At least it calmed him down. She is confident in his win, since he's a member of the strongest party on the continent, the Orichalcum Fist. Calmed down, Rick prepares to meet his fate. Angelica, promising to show some restraint, enhances her body and weapon. She casts Blink Step, appearing behind Rick, surprising him. Despite casting a slower version of the spell, she is confident it is beyond Rick's ability to react. From the sidelines, Freed cheers for his sister, proudly noting her nickname, Lightspeed Angelica. As Rick rubs his eye before her next attack, he is shocked at her apparent slowness, realizing that his normal running speed is faster than her enhanced movements. Truly discombobulated, he wonders why she's called Lightspeed, easily stepping aside from her attack. This shocks Angelica, as only a handful of knights can react to her speed. She dismisses it as a fluke and goes at it again. Rick realizes she's genuinely that slow. He wonders if she made her way to the Royal Knights through family connections or if he might actually be stronger than he thought. Suddenly, Angelica trips, and her fumbling makes it unexpectedly challenging for Rick to dodge. Unable to predict her erratic movements, Rick dismisses his earlier thoughts of being strong as momentary arrogance. Angelica, noticing his hesitation, pretends her stumble was a deliberate technique, fueling Rick's self-doubt even further. Angelica's next technique is an improved Blink Step, a move she can only use 3 times due to the physical strain on her body. This advanced move, called Blink Step, Iota, is 3 times faster than her previous attacks. However, Rick still finds it slow and avoids it with ease. She strikes second time, but Rick dodges effortlessly. Realizing that the duel will never end if he doesn't strike back, Rick prepares to counter, though he fears she might have another hidden move. Barely on her feet, Angelica makes another attempt. This time, Rick is ready to counter, but she trips, causing Rick to miss his hit, which inadvertently sends Angelica flying. Had she not tripped, Rick's punch would have connected solidly. Angelica, astounded, asks who Rick really is, unable to believe he's an F-rank adventurer. Rick, still convinced of Angelica's strength, readies himself to continue, but Angelica forfeits 15 the duel. She tries to maintain her pride, claiming she went easy on him. As she starts to leave, Rick reminds her of the duel's terms, wondering if she's now his servant. Without responding, Angelica dashes away. Rionette then reminds Rick that the results of the first test will be announced soon, and that Ashok and the others will be arriving later. This shocks Rick, as he dreads their presence, believing nothing good will come from it. Later, the guild finally announces the results. If a ticket glows blue, it means the candidate has passed and will participate in the next stage of the exam, a mock battle the following day. Rick is anxious, especially with Rionette's promise that if he fails, his training will be tripled, adding immense pressure. As Rick patiently waits for the results, he is relieved to see his ticket glowing blue, indicating he has passed the first stage. Rionette never doubted him. As they leave the room, Rick is hit with a horrifying smell. The eldest son of the Diamuit family, Raster, approaches Rionette and starts to pester her with cringe-worthy lines, claiming she must be his care package because she fell from heaven. Raster declares his intention to take Rionette as his second wife, but Rick quickly intervenes, calling her his girlfriend in an attempt to make Raster back off. Noticing Rick's card, Raster bursts out laughing. F rank. At your age, he scoffs. Adding insult to injury, Raster reveals he's the examiner for the second test, the mock battle, and boasts of his I rank status. Despite Raster's continued advances, Rionette plays along with Rick's scheme and adds that Raster's cologne is disgusting. Infuriated, Raster vows to show Rick the vast difference in their strength during the mock battle, convinced that once he does, Rionette will come to her senses. Once Raster is gone, Rick quickly steps back and apologizes for making up the story about Rionette being his girlfriend. To his surprise, Rionette responds that it actually made her happy, causing Rick to blush. That evening, Raster binge drinks out of frustration. Suddenly, his two siblings burst into the room, crying and complaining about how a 40-something-year-old outshined them earlier that day. A 40-something-year-old, Raster repeats, quickly piecing together that it must have been Rick. His siblings confirm his suspicions. The next day, Rick is once again anxious, but Rionette reassures him to take it easy on the others. Suddenly, Lynx approaches them, revealing that he will be their examiner for the second test. This revelation puts Rick's mind at ease. Lynx, a fan of Rick, is amazed that someone would dare to become an adventurer past 30 years old. He expresses his admiration and even offers to go for drinks after the test. Unknown to them, Raster is eavesdropping with a grin. As Lynx turns a corner, Raster approaches him with a proposition. Moments later, just as Rick is in high spirits, an announcer reveals that Lynx has fallen ill and their new examiner will be Raster, an unbelievable turn of events that sends a chill down Rick's spine. Also, the two scuffles they had yesterday were with Raster's siblings. Overhearing other adventurers, Rick learns that if Raster is their examiner, it's all over. Raster reached a rank at 17 and earned the nickname F-Rank Crusher for his habit of harassing examinees who catch his eye. Rick knows he's now on Raster's radar. As Raster mercilessly crushes the newbies, Rick can't catch a break. He believes there's no way he can win against Raster, but backing down would triple his training regime, which seems even worse. Seeing his despair, Rionette gets on her knees and reassures Rick that he is strong, confidently asserting that he can defeat the Cologne Man. Her encouraging words lift his spirits. Suddenly, a cloaked figure appears and offers to read Rick's fortune, insisting that he is not suspicious and offering the service free of charge. As Rick is about to sit, a magic circle activates, teleporting him away. Freed then reveals himself, marveling at his own genius. Growing tired of these games, Rionette grabs Freed by the collar and threatens to destroy his eye, squeezing the truth out of him like water from a soaked sponge. Meanwhile, out of the exam bounds, Rick is approached by the elite guards of the Diamuit family. They want Rick to fail the test without even participating. The old man among them reveals their strength is equivalent to B rank, or even I rank adventurers as he slowly approaches Rick. This feels incredibly unfair to Rick, but suddenly his mentors appear behind him, striking more fear in Rick than the elite bodyguards do. Ashork is furious that Rick isn't on the testing grounds, but before Rick can answer, the elite bodyguard intervenes, attacking Ashork. Unimpressed, Ashork advises him to enhance his weapon before attacking him. A fist punch warrants a broken fist. He heals it and even gives him advice on how to improve. Realization suddenly hits the butler as to who the trio is. Mizet, recognizing that they're messing with Rick, decides to use his new weapon, Juliet. Loaded with stones and lead bullets, he decimates the bodyguards in an instant. Attempts to take Elisarette hostage also fail spectacularly, as she decimates the surroundings with a level 7 nature spell. The butler explains that Elisarette, only 10 years old, is the most powerful genius vampire mage. Half-elf, half-dwarf, Mizet is a 50-year-old genius weapon craftsman. The orc with monstrous physical strength is Sage Beast, Ashork. All of them are S-rank adventurers. Their party, Orichalum Fist, is the strongest on the continent. Recognizing them, the butler immediately surrenders, while Elisarette casually plays with her food. As the confrontation is resolved, Rick makes his way back to Rionette, who is still holding Freed. She casts him aside in an instant. Lynx barely limps to Rick, revealing that Raster was the one who attacked him. He didn't stand a chance. Before Raster beat him up, he asked Lynx about his dream, which was to build a school for new adventurers from poor families. Raster only laughed and continued to beat him up, before chaining him and locking him in a closet, a real bully. Lynx advises Rick to withdraw from the test, warning that Raster will definitely go all out against him. But this only fuels Rick's determination. He is set on defeating Raster at all costs, even though he believes it's impossible. Meanwhile, Raster's bodyguard informs him that they failed to stop Rick. Raster only smirks, feeling relieved to destroy Rick personally. As Rick menacingly approaches the testing grounds, he swears that he will send Raster flying. In the tribunes, a few people watch as Raster mercilessly demolishes every F-ranker. One of the spectators, Adolf, explains the concept of the 4 foundational faculties: physical strength, body control, magic reserves, and magic control. Together, these factors determine an adventurer's strength. Adolf possesses the ability to visualize other people's stats. For rank E, there's nothing impressive, but Raster has the stats of rank A, though it strains Adolf's eyes to look at anyone strong for too long. When he notices the old man Rick, he checks his strength and finds it off the charts, causing his eyes to burn from his strength. Rick's entire party is present to witness his progress, even Elise joins in. Although Elise explains that Raster is a tough examiner who overpowers rookies, Ashok doesn't see this as an obstacle for Rick. Raster's siblings eagerly anticipate seeing Rick humiliated after receiving a proper beating from him. Right from the start, Raster asserts that he won't be as easily defeated as his commoner guards, proclaiming himself a genius. However, Rick remains unfazed and asks why Raster became an adventurer in the first place. The reason is simple: Raster has the talent for it. Rick, finding such a shallow reason unacceptable, refuses to be bested by Raster. Raster starts with a level 1 spell that flies past Rick, who doesn't move a muscle. Raster assumes Rick is frozen in fear, but Rick is actually using this time to calm his nerves and observe Raster, following the advice Rionette gave him before the fight. Seeing that Rick still isn't attacking, Raster ups the ante with a 3rd level spell, which Rick takes head on. Elise worries for him, but Ashok reassures her, explaining that the spell is nothing for Rick. He mentions the 4 foundational faculties, emphasizing that magic reserves must be developed at a young age or there's no hope for the future. Since Rick started at 30 years old, his magic reserves are extremely low. To compensate, he trained exhaustively in the other 3 areas. Next, Raster uses a level 4 wind spell, but it's just a breeze for Rick. Ashok further explains how each of them trained Rick in their respective areas, elevating his power to the realm of S rank. Just like them, Raster continues his barrage of spells, but Elise is still shocked that Rick could be an S ranker, though Rick himself is unaware of it. It's mostly Ashok's fault, since he insisted that the tasks Rick faced could be completed by F rankers on their first attempt. The barrage continues as Raster gives his all to wear down Rick, but it's all child's play for Rick, which starts to annoy Raster. Determined to finish off Rick with his own fists, Raster enchants his body and strikes, but is immediately countered by Rick. Raster is overcome with confusion. Rick finally understands what Rionette tried to tell him. Despite Raster's talent, he neglected to refine and further it. Raster has a lot of magic reserves, but he's lacking in the other areas. Even Raster's full incantation magic is stopped by a mere raise of Rick's palm. Raster attributes this to luck, believing Rick will run out of it eventually. However, when Raster charges in again, he is too slow for Rick, barely managing to put up a defensive barrier in time. Despite this, Raster falls back on excuses, claiming he's tired from so many examinees and insisting that Rick is still a lowly, sub-3rd rate elf. Rick wonders why Raster is so reluctant to acknowledge him, pointing out that his precision control is far superior. Finally, Raster asks the real question: how did Rick become so strong in just 2 years without magic? Rick explains his rigorous training. He wasn't allowed to leave the dragon's nest until he defeated it. He endured successions of explosions and swam through monster capture fluid. This makes Elise wonder if he wouldn't die from that, but Ashok confirms that Rick did die, but his healing ability can bring him back to life. By overcoming his physical limitations, repeatedly breaking down and rebuilding, that's how Rick became so strong. Raster calls it nonsense. Even if such severe training existed, what could possibly motivate him to go through with it? Rick's motivation is his dream, to defeat the world's strongest monster, Kaiser Alcipiat. Raster and the kid burst out laughing, believing it to be a mere legend, a bedtime story. Having had enough of Rick's nonsense, Raster is ready to finish the fight once and for all. He binds Rick with a level 7 spell and begins an incantation for what he calls the greatest magic humankind can wield. Level 8 composed magic, morphing into a huge tree-like monster that leaves the spectators speechless. While restrained, Rick starts powering up his air shot, which Raster finds amusingly basic. Rick mentions he has trained this magic 100 million times, perfecting it. Elise thinks this is an exaggeration given Rick has trained only for 2 years, but Ashok explains it's possible with space-time magic. Just as Raster goes for his hit, Rick easily breaks free from his binds and counters Raster's attack, decimating his monstrous creation in an instant and sending him flying into the tribunes, knocking him out. The entire arena is shocked that this seemingly ordinary guy defeated an elite. After the match, Rick's whole party congratulates him on a splendid performance. Rick finally realizes he is much stronger than he thought, wondering why he had doubted himself all this time. When Raster limps back, Rick reveals how a genius and an elite like Raster lost to a late starter like him. Rick limited the number of techniques he used and trained himself exhaustively in them. He advises Raster to refine one technique before moving to the next. Irritated, Raster declares that he will examine Rick again at his next test, vowing not to lose to a third rate again. As his family follows him, Angelica acknowledges Rick's strength. Finally, the announcement of those who passed the E-rank test comes. Rick remains calm, finally understanding his strength and knowing there is no way he can fail. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.